Good evening, Mayor, Council. The Council Action Form has a lot of information, but usually the problem is understanding what is a parallel generation versus what is net metering. So I have a presentation to go through those concepts so you can better understand where we're headed. So in 2010, the Electric Utility Board developed an interconnection standard mainly for any type of renewable energies, which is solar and wind. The consumer generator must be compensated for that generation. Under a Kansas statute, the compensation should be no less than 150% of the avoided cost. In April 1st, 2010, the EUB adopted resolution EUB 008, making the renewable energy resource rate to compensate customer generators 150% times the city average cost of energy purchased. They had three options, but they went with this one. So in 2010, the amount was 5.90 cents per kilowatt hour. Every April 1st, we update that rate. So for 2022, that rate was 0.717 or 7.17 cents. On the slide, you will see the way it's calculated, which is the last 5 years average. Then we multiply it times 150, and we come out with the 717. So what is the main differences between parallel generation and net metering? On parallel generation, the customer pays for any kilowatts the energy provides, and the city credits the customer for any kilowatt hours put into the city's electric grid. Net metering, the customer pays the net energy of what is used. If the net is positive, the customer pays for any energy the city provides, and if it's negative, the city compensates the customer for any energy they actually generate and put into the grid. Credit, parallel generation, the rate is 150% of the average avoided energy cost, which as I mentioned before. Net metering is only 100%. Peak load allowed, parallel generation 4%. Net metering is lower, is 1%. As far as the size, parallel generation, residents can have up to 25 kilowatt system, commercial 200. Under net metering is lower, residential 15, commercial 100. Parallel generation is also known as net billing, and you will see through the examples. So net billing, have two examples. One, a customer uses 250 kilowatt hours from the city and generates or injects 200 to the city. What will the monthly bill be? Service charge is $672, energy used $250, then it's multiplied times the retail sale and comes out to $25.95. The energy that is produced or injected to the grid minus 200 times 717 comes to minus 14.34. If you add the numbers, you come out with a bill of 18.33. It does not include taxes or PCA. Now let's look at the other way. They say they use 200 and inject 250. Again, the energy use will be 200 times the retail. It comes up to 2076. Energy injected minus 250 times 717 is minus 17.92. So the net bill is 9.56. Any questions on net billing? Net metering. As I mentioned before, you look at the actual net. what the meter measures coming in and going out. So for this case, if the customer uses 250 and injects 200, the net energy is 250 minus 200, so you have 50 kilowatts. So 50 kilowatts times your retail rate comes up to 519. So in this case, your bill will be 1191. On the other side, if they produce more than they actually use, we have minus 50. Like I mentioned before, it's 100% of the avoided cost, so the rate is lower, 4.78 cents. So you have minus 2.39. The math comes up to 4.33. The quasi net metering is something I came up with to use both the net metering concept and the net billing concept. So using the quasi net metering, the actual rate is the same for injected and used. So you're actually comparing energy to energy. You're not derating or your energy. So the quasi net metering in this case is the same as your net metering if you use that method. If we go the other way, you see that we have 200 times 1038, 2076, injected minus 250 times 0.1038 is minus 2595, the bill will be 153. If you compare the quasi-metering with the net metering, it is slightly lower, but it looks very close. Considering we only have 27 residential customers, the impact of going to a quasi-net metering will not be too, it will not impact our electric fund at all. Any questions? And this is, on this one, I compare actual customers. And if you will see the three different options, this customer has a big system, and you will see that only in September they injected slightly over the actual usage. So the actual difference was very minimum. Any questions regarding the comparisons?
Let's open it up to public comment first. Is there any public comment on committee recommendation number 1? Now we'll open up to council questions.
All right. Well, I've got some questions. I'm sure that Mark does too. But my first of a comment. This is exactly what we had discussed before, Gons, and this is exactly what I was looking for. So I appreciate the forward thinking on this and getting this put together, and the Utility Advisory Committee, obviously, for bringing this to the council. Actually, two questions. One is a minimum bill. Is obviously, if this goes below the service charge, we need to at least assess the service charge so that that's our connection to the city. So I would say the minimum should be that 672, all right, because that's the cost of the line going into the house. Okay, so even if you have an amount that's being pulled, you know, and we're putting in more into the grid than we are taking, then as a customer, I would expect that I would have to pay the 672 for the connection. Okay, that helps pick up our maintenance costs. So that's the first thing. The second thing is there's a max. You said there's a maximum of 1%. If I see this being, you know, a catalyst to bring more people onto the grid that are using renewables through rooftop solar, I can absolutely see that at 1% not being enough if it's net metering. Is it tied to the 4% for the net billing, or is it tied to the 1% that's currently on the grid right now?
I don't follow. The 1% is that your system cannot be greater than your actual demand for 1 year. So right now you can be as high as 1%.
Yeah, 1%. That's what I'm saying is
On
that,
the parallel connection, you can go up to 4% as your maximum.
okay.
So it's tied to the, if you go parallel interconnection or if you go with the net metering. Those are the limitations.
Correct. But is the quasi subject to the 1% or the 4% threshold?
Actually, I didn't, since it's something in between, I didn't put any percentage, but it will have to be with the current standard, which is 4%.
4%? Okay, that's fine. That's what I was looking for, actually, is that we'd be going with the 4%. So,
And regarding if the bill is negative, usually utility billing will give them a credit in their bill. They will actually not pay them, but
sure.
it will be a credit for the next bill.
I mean, in this particular circumstance, I could see the service charge as a minimum amount that we would bill, regardless of whether or not it's a negative balance.
Okay?
So,
I don't know that I agree with that.
Yeah. I was-
why? Because there's a cost for running that line.
Well, I mean, if they're selling their energy back,
Mhm.
then you're not paying them for it at a certain time. If they were to sell back 100 kilowatt hours.
I'm not talking about the energy. I'm talking about the cost of the line. There's maintenance. There's maintenance that has to be done on those lines.
But the city's still getting paid for that power that came back into the system and reselling it to a different customer, right?
Correct. They're being paid. Yeah, they're being paid, but it's what they're being paid is the retail rate. There's a reason why that parallel generation is a lower rate. It's because of the fact you have to cover that gap. Well, if we're taking that gap completely away, which is the retail billing, back to the city, because they're paying a retail rate of 10 cents, all right, for the power that's being generated from our solar panels, then that means that they get nothing, and there still has to be a maintenance cost. There's a maintenance cost to provide that line. I'm not talking about the energy.
I understand. I'm just saying they're using their energy to pay for that maintenance cost. The energy that they generated with their solar panels that they sold back to the city, they're using that credit to pay for that $6 service fee is what I guess I'm saying.
The service fee is independent of that, though. The service fee is, yes, go on. Go on, Mark.
Okay, so somebody who was on the UBA 2010 and helped craft this,
Yeah.
there was a lot of discussion, and it's good to see that it's actually doing something at this point, right?
Yeah.
We were hoping it would be a little sooner, not 12 years later. But at the time, it was to incentivize, without providing a rebate or cash up front or anything else, for people to go green themselves, right?
Yep.
So that's why that metering came about, parallel generation, et cetera. And then the idea was we'd see how many people were on the uptake and we'd reevaluate, right? So this net metering is a good thing. It's a step in the right direction. What I will say as far as the service fee, I understand what you're saying. And I understand what you're saying. And you're both right and you're both wrong. And the reason I'll say that is that
That just clears everything up,
the reason
Mark.
I'll say that is the rate, when it is calculated, takes into a consideration our maintenance cost, and the service fee is generated from that as well.
Okay.
So they're both tied together. So if you're generating enough to offset that, so be it. And yes, it exists, but it's rolled into the rate as well. So since we're already handling it with the rate/service fee, consider it one bucket. Plus, I can tell you that customers do not look at the difference; they're looking at the total. I would lean towards what Mark's saying.
You're okay with just saying that service fee, if we cut into the service charge if it goes over?
Yes.
Okay.
Now, personally, that's because right now we still have a small set of people taking this up.
Yeah,
This
the
is
bigger
something
the
we
universe.
need to continuously monitor
Yeah.
to see, if we get 100, we get 300 customers, that changes things potentially.
Well,
And we'd have to reevaluate what that calculation is, because the aspect of this number, right, we changed the rate and the service fee, but the city doesn't get to make extra dollars off that when it comes back by somebody generating it. We just don't buy the excess on the market. But until we have enough that brings down the entire amount,
Which I hope that will happen.
potentially one day, right? But since that doesn't happen, this is in the noise of the market, right? This is what we buy off the market above our
Yep.
wholesale contracts. So if it gets to the point that we can change our wholesale contracts and request, a megawatt less from somebody, then that would change that rate additionally well, so it complicates things. We're not there yet, though.
The question I have is, there's a maximum that a residential or commercial customer could sell back, right? I mean,
They can sell back, like I said, their system right now is 25 kilowatts.
okay,
Mhm.
yeah, you said that.
So they can sell whatever, but the way the system is, the system capacity for a home is determined by their past demand, the 12, the last year demand. So you can go as high as 4%, but not any higher.
Yeah,
So
so
that
the
puts
concern-
a limit.
Yeah, the concern that a residential customer could generate, go on vacation for 3 months and generate, not use really any power from the city, and they're just constantly generating and sending it back into the city. There's a cap that they're,
Yeah, that's the one, that's what I asked about, the 1% versus the 4%. Now, the other piece of that, though, is that understand selling back energy means that you're not using any energy at all from the utility, which means that excess power now goes into the grid for other customers. So it actually, the whole goal of home-based power generation is to lower the overall consumption of the city, but also if the city continues to grow, it provides more capacity to be able to provide to other customers in the grid.
and then I can see your point in that. Since we're providing, as the city, we're providing that means for you to be able to sell your power back.
Correct.
That $6 service fee is that pay to play.
It's part of it, as Mark said. I didn't realize it was like a hybrid,
Well-
but yeah,
Since you only have the 27 customers, it's still basically in the noise.
it's negligible,
But
yeah.
as it grows, it's something we will have to look at further and evaluate as part of the rate study. Right now, we set the rates, and then we have this net metering agreement on the side. If you have a substantial amount of our usage being also where this is a factor, we would have to roll that into the rate equation, I think, as well.
Yeah, that'd be a good
That would
problem to
change
have.
things up a little
Yeah,
bit.
that'd be a good problem to have, actually.
And then that's where you could also change your 1% to 4%. You could have a minimum that you get $0. We never give them a credit.
Yeah.
Right? You could do that. I mean, anything's on the table, but at this point, I don't think it's really
Yeah.
a big deal. I like the net metering. We're the right step.
Oh, I think this is a great step forward.
I
Absolutely.
think we keep looking at it and we see how many people take it up more.
I've had several solar providers come to me, and home solar providers come to me and say, the only thing holding us back from doing this is the credits, the net credits. They're coming back. If they had an ability to get the retail back, they'd be in tomorrow installing houses. So, yeah, this is a huge move. I appreciate it.
Do we require homes to be on our grid if they have enough solar and a battery and they can do it all without us? Do they have to be connected and get a bill from the city?
Anybody that generates electricity, they have to sign a interconnection agreement.
Any other questions?
If I may add something, the reason we cannot go to a net metering is because the existing customer information service, the billing software doesn't have that option.
Yeah.
So to me, doing this I think met the concept.
The smart meters made it possible, in other words,
Correct.
to do this. Yeah.
All right.
So in order to change the rate, we will have to, city council will have to approve an ordinance.
Mhm.
So we're doing the rate study for the electric, so once we have the rates for presentation, I'll bring this item again.
Thanks, guys.
You're welcome.
We do have a motion for committee recommendation number 1.
So moved.
Second.
Motion Shute, second Baldwin. We authorize the implementation of a quasi-net metering, billing, and investigation of implementing a net metering policy in the near future. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Abstained? Committee recommendation, item number 1 passes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Gon.